All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we've got Kyle. Kyle and I worked together for his Long Beach Marathon prep, where he ran a 35-minute PR. Congratulations again on that, Kyle.
Thank you.
But tell everyone a little bit about who you are and your running background before this prep.
Yeah, you might know me as Dyson, the artist, if you're coming from my page. um, as far as running, endurance, everything, I am super new. I started running 2 years ago. Just I don't know why any of us do it, but I don't know why I started either. And it just led me down a path of wanting to keep growing, keep going, getting better, seeing yourself get better, and it's always cool and surprising, and you want to keep going. So that kind of got me here to you, and it seems like sky's the limit. It just seems like we just keep getting better and better.
Let's go, man. That's awesome. Now, I know you had done, how many marathons had you done before we worked together? Was it one or multiple?
Four, and then
Okay.
I've done just a ton of other, halves and little 5Ks before marathons, 10
Yeah.
milers, just stuff like that.
Yeah. So that's awesome, man. So
Mm.
tell everyone what was different about this prep because 35 minutes, guys, if you're whether you have context for marathons or not, 35 minutes is a significant increase for a race. So, what from your side did you see that you did differently preparing for this race?
Definitely the consistency. If we're talking in Strava graphs, it used to be pinpoints like this, and for this one it looked like this. So consistency was big. Obviously, we talked about this before. I've never done speed training properly. Might have done a sprint here and there because I heard that's what you're supposed to do, or I would try to run at a very specific pace as long as I could. Just ignorance type of training that didn't really know what I was doing, but it felt right. So yeah, this time having proper guidance and more science and your experience all together made it something,
Yeah,
special.
100%. No, that's really good. Consistency, having that source of accountability has been really
Mhm.
helpful for me also. And to put a little bit more behind what you said about track workouts, to give the listeners context, we implemented one time a week doing a track workout where we do 400, 800-meter repeats, some variation of different repeats. And then also, we did a couple marathon style workouts on the weekends. So
Mhm.
every weekend there was a long run, but on some of these weekends there was a longer, not necessarily longer, but a longer interval workouts where you're running longer intervals of a mile, 2 miles at marathon pace to really simulate the marathon experience. And then also, one thing I think, Kyle, for you was that carb load we did and how you felt differently through that. Because if you don't know Kyle also is training to cut weight through this process. He looks like a Greek god under there. Don't let him fool you. But one thing in particular stands out in your prep was that time. I think it was like a 20-mile workout,
Yeah.
maybe where we practiced a carb load, but it didn't go over so well.
Nope.
Tell them about what happened there and the change that you made because we practiced the carb load in training.
Yeah, so I basically, just to give everyone context, I basically did zero carb loading throughout the entire, I think it was 17 weeks total. So 2 weeks before the marathon, week 15, we did a mock carb load, and I thought I was doing it right. I was only eating around 100 grams of carbs a day. So for people who don't know how much that is, that's like a cup of cooked rice, maybe a cup and a half, something like that. So spread out throughout a day, it's horrible, especially with speed training and everything. So those are always really hard. Of course, on the weekends, I would do gels during the long runs and things to help a little bit, but I never did proper, pizza the night before and all this type of stuff. So for that one, it also could have just been the fact that I hadn't eaten a ton leading up to it. So it was really hard once you start breaking down that we need X amount of carbs per day leading up to it. it's really hard to make that switch when you're used to only getting a very small amount. So trying to get 500 grams in, I tried my hardest. I might have only gotten in 300 the first day, something like that. Next day, probably got the 5, but felt horrible. It was just like a bad experience. And for whatever reason, on the actual race day or the mock race day, um, yeah, I felt horrible. I think it was around halfway through, mile 10 to 12. I had to stop and sit down for maybe 10 minutes and be like, okay, what is going on? What do I need to do? Tried to refuel a little bit more. And the biggest thing is, I think we were doing one gel per 4 miles, is kind of what we had talked about. Um, so yeah, that just didn't work for my body for some reason. So when it came to race day, I was really scared. I did carb load 2 days earlier, so I did maybe a 5-day carb load is what it would have been. That helped tremendously. Thank God we did that. And then I did a gel every 30 minutes during the actual race, which is a big difference from 4 miles.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
And for you, well, first, that's a just example. Try out what you're going to do on race day in your
Yes.
training,
Yes.
because if he would have waited to race day to try that carb load, he would have had an awful race. But since he tried it before
Hmm.
a long run workout, he was able to make that iteration, and to be encouraged that training doesn't always go the way we want it to, and you can make adjustments. That's why we train the way we're going to race, so that we know and have tested things before race day. Now tell everyone what your like race day experience was like, because it sounded like was just such an amazing race experience for you, better than any one of the ones in the past.
Yeah, by far. I mean, it's not even close. It sounds crazy for anyone who's ran marathons before to say something like this, but there was no dip in energy at really any point in the race. And I felt I mean, that was the craziest thing, because kind of how you said, with training, it's not an indicator of your fitness or anything. Because the whole time we were training, I mean, there was 3 mile runs that I had to take a breather on here and there. Just, didn't feel good that day for whatever reason, how I was eating. Of course, our mock race didn't go well for me at all. So going into it, you just don't. I didn't know personally how I was going to feel. So getting to, around mile 17, 19, just realizing, hey, I don't feel bad at all. I actually got to run like a little bit faster, push it a little bit more. And then by, mile 23, when you're kind of feeling you're getting towards the end, I was really pushing it and I just felt incredible. So yeah, it was about the perfect race you could ever have. I mean, on top of that, it was also foggy and a little cloudy and cool that day. We got really lucky because it was supposed to be super hot. Obviously, I got to give credit where it's due to that as well, to Mother Nature. But yeah, I
Let's
think just the consistency, the prep, my body was in so much better shape than I knew. And yeah, we implemented every single thing on race day that we trained for, um, and fixed the mistakes that we made.
Let's go. Amazing job, Kyle. To kind of summarize that, the carb load was a huge thing for him that he implemented differently. By the way, practice your carb load in training. We did the track workouts one time a week, and then the longer marathon workouts. Just the consistency was a big difference. And then also, I know we didn't talk much about this, but shoes do really help. Getting a good carbon or nylon plated shoe help
Hmm.
for improving your marathon time. Now, Kyle, if you, I wanted to ask you, what would you say to someone who has been watching my content, maybe seen some of these videos and considering getting a coach or getting some help for a marathon or an ultra, but hasn't yet?
Yeah. For me personally, maybe someone can relate to this. I was at a point where the marathon I did before this one in March of this year, I because I had done a couple, I felt experienced enough. I didn't train as hard, so I had a huge meltdown during that one where I got a cramp, and I think it ended up being like a 4:27 or something terrible for me, right? Compared to the last one, it was just like not a good race. And so I was at this point where I didn't know if I wanted to keep running because I've always felt prior to our training that maybe I just don't have the body for it. I'm not built for it. Maybe it's, not our genetics, whatever. Because I was never able to really push to those places that I wanted to go. Obviously, I wasn't training properly. So, yeah, I kind of made the decision that right now I need to decide if, I want to get better or just stop, because there's no reason to keep doing the same thing, right? For a lot of different reasons. So, yeah, for me, it was I reached out to Jeremy Miller, if you're familiar with him. And yeah, I asked him first because he's like the only person online that I see who just posts content all the time. And we're not like friends. I don't think we've ever spoken outside of just, hey, here and there online. But yeah, I asked him, do you train? Like, what do you recommend? And he sent me to you. Saw your content, thought it looked great. And yeah, I was just ready to make that decision to get better because I had come so far. So if you've been running a year or two and you just, you want to make the most of it, I would definitely say get a coach, because there's a lot you don't know. Even as much Googling as I did and research and chat GBT, everything, none of it got me to this point. And also that accountability where, it's really easy to skip a 2-3 mile, easy run on during the week. And when you have someone, who's on the other side who might see it, you're going to go out and run regardless. So
Yeah.
there's all those things, and they all add up to, you getting better ultimately. So the biggest thing for me was just everything I didn't know that I didn't know. Right.
Yeah, for
So,
sure. That's really good. And a coach
mhm.
can help you save that time to spend researching and things like that. And two, yeah, when I got a coach, I went from like wondering if I'm doing enough, not doing
Mhm.
enough, very inconsistent, to like the next year I did 3 100-mile races in a year.
Yeah.
Um, because of the coach. And so, whether you hire me or hire my friend Joe Corcione or other coaches that I know, just get a coach. It's going to help
Yeah.
you out so much, and going to help speed track your progress. So, Kyle, congrats again on the 35-minute PR.
Mhm.
Where can people find you if they have any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, mainly Instagram, but it's usually deleted off my phone. So if I don't see it for a while, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's Dyson on Instagram, DYSN. And I'm available sometimes.
I like
What
it, dude. He just does his own thing. So
happened?
hit him hit him up. He may or may not respond. Kyle, thanks so much for sharing some wisdom on here.
Of
And
course.
everyone out here listening, go out and run your race.
Yes, sir.